But breaking news right now in Hollywood, a bizarre hit and run leads to a woman's death. She ended up being wedged between a car and a tree.
And police are still looking for that driver, the victim's friend, who ran off, they say, after that crash. NBC4's Michelle Via is live in Hollywood, where police are investigating exactly what happened. Michelle?
And good morning. Just a terrible chain of events here. You could still see the skid marks on the grass. This is where it all happened. Just a bizarre case of road rage in Hollywood, ending with the woman dead. Police now looking for her friend.
I don't know how they confronted. I just know that there was an argument. And at the termination of that argument, that's when the incident occurred.
So according to LAPD, two women were in a Mercedes-Benz last night. They got into a fight with the motorcyclist on Sunset. That motorcyclist was reportedly bumped as then the incident continued on North Martel. Both women apparently got out to confront the man on the motorcycle when they were on Martel Street. Just then, their Mercedes began to drive away. The driver was somehow ejected, or police believe fell out of the car somehow. That's when the passenger tried to start the car as the driver was trying to get back in it. But instead, she ended up wedged between a tree and even possibly run over accidentally by her friend. That woman who was initially driving the Mercedes died. She was in her 20s, and her friend who took off running also believed to be in her 20s. The motorcyclist we saw all morning long did stay on the scene with police. The body has been removed. A tow truck has also towed the Mercedes, and we are now left with the scene here as police continue the investigation. Do want to let folks know that North Martel, which was blocked overnight, has since reopened. That is the latest in Hollywood. Michelle Via for Today in LA. Back to you.
Her friend originally crashed into the tree that is right behind me. The crime scene, though, is now clear. The car gone, as is the body, but the suspect still outstanding. This all started around midnight up in Hollywood on Sunset Boulevard. Two women apparently in an altercation with a male motorcyclist on Sunset Boulevard. Reportedly, they collided or connected somehow. No word exactly who hit who, but investigators are indeed calling this case a case of road rage. They say the exchange continued over here to Martel, where the Mercedes with the two women inside followed that motorcyclist, and this is where a second altercation occurred. They say the female passenger got out of the car to confront the motorcyclist. Her friend who was driving then attempted to get away, to drive away, but ended up dead instead.
The driver attempted to drive away, crashed into a tree. She was pinned halfway between the tree and the car. The passenger ran up to the vehicle, apparently to move it, and apparently it was inadvertently ran over the driver in her attempts to flee.
The female passenger reportedly took off running. No word in what direction, no description of her, no ID either. As for the motorcyclist the women were fighting with, he remained here on the scene and was cooperating with police. Again, we have no ID of that suspect and no ID of that victim either. That'll be up to the coroner to release the name once next of kin has been notified. In the meantime, no word if there's any surveillance video that captured this whole ordeal on camera. There's lots of apartment complexes here on Martel, lots of apartment complexes with video cameras on the outside. In the meantime, once this suspect is captured, she faces a minimum of felony hit and run. Very bizarre case. And regarding the suspect we're told was arrested shortly before 8 o'clock this morning. Authorities would not say where she was arrested or what led up to her arrest. They say they are interviewing her and charges will be pending. More on that in just a moment. But we do know she was behind the wheel of a vehicle that was her friend's and ended up accidentally killing her friend after her friend ran into the tree behind me. And now this all happened around midnight last night in Hollywood on Sunset Boulevard. Apparently, there were two women in a Mercedes-Benz, and they got involved in an altercation with a man who was on a motorcycle on Sunset Boulevard. Possibly the cars may have run into each other. Something happened. The vehicles made contact. Investigators are indeed calling it a case of road rage. They say, though, the exchange continued over here onto Martel. Authorities say it was the ladies in the Mercedes that followed that motorcyclist over here, where a second altercation occurred. And the female passenger, now suspect, got out of the car to confront the motorcyclist. Her friend, in the meantime, who was driving, stayed in the car, but attempted to get away from this scene, but ended up dead instead.
The driver attempted to drive away, crashed into a tree. She was pinned halfway between the tree and the car. The passenger ran up to the vehicle, apparently to move it, and apparently it was inadvertently ran over the driver in her attempts to flee.
That female passenger reportedly then took off running again. She was arrested sometime before 8 o'clock this morning, but no details on the rest as of yet. In the meantime, the motorcyclist, who was also involved, stayed behind here at the scene, was cooperative and talking to police. We have no ID yet on the victim, that female who lost her life, who someone here at the building says may have been a mother of a young child and may have been a woman in her 20s. In the meantime, the suspect, we know by authorities, will face a minimum of felony hit-and-run charges.
Case of road rage turned into a really bizarre hit and run in Hollywood early this morning. A young woman, a nightclub manager, was killed. KCAL 9's Cara Finstrom shows us a little girl now is left without a mother.
Gloria tells us her daughter, 26-year-old Sophia Ardalan, was killed during what police are calling a road rage incident that turned into a deadly hit and run. She has no idea what to tell Sophia's 4-year-old daughter because Gloria says she still can't understand how Sophia ended up being run over by her own Mercedes.
Some people were yelling. A large bang woke me up. We had our window open. I heard some people screaming. There was a motorcyclist that was involved in the incident. He was hysterical.
I looked out over my balcony and I could see that someone had been pinned under their car.
Witnesses who did not want to go on camera tell us a motorcyclist was arguing with Sophia and a friend. The man claimed the women's Mercedes had bumped his motorcycle on Sunset Boulevard and he'd followed them here. Witnesses say the women then got back into the car. Investigators say at some point it hopped a curb, striking a tree. That's when Sophia reportedly fell out, and police believe the passenger ended up in control, running over her.
The Mercedes had kind of hit a tree, hit this little retaining wall. The door was wide open, and this poor woman was laid out on the ground next to the car.
There was a young woman who it looked like she was trying to pull the person up from under the car. Sort of limply. It looked like maybe she had been intoxicated possibly or just in shock, but she was obviously very scared.
The motorcyclist started yelling aggressively and ultimately the passenger fled. Police later found a suspect. Sophia's mom said her daughter and the passenger had recently become friends and she can't understand how she could just leave her daughter on the ground dying.
Sophia's mother tells us she lived at these apartments. Again, we know a suspect has been taken into custody, but it's unclear at this point what exactly she'll be charged with. From Hollywood, Cara Finstrom, KCAL 9 News.